Welcome back in to Talkin Tech. Home team Brandon Leak, the College Football Hall of Famer, all-time leading passer at Georgia Tech, Joe Hamilton, Sean Nerny, Coach Nerny. We are here to talk Tech, and no need to even play around with it. The worst loss we've seen, I'm looking at it as the worst loss we should ever see. Georgia Tech falling to the Citadel 27-24 in overtime. The option did what it's supposed to do. Get first downs, eat up clock, limit possessions, and just an awful way to finish up week 2 action for the Jackets.
When you look at the grand scheme of things, home team, you know it was going to be some hurdles. You know it was going to be some setbacks down the road. But I think that became a mountain when you let the Citadel FCS service team come in your backyard and was able to silence the crowd, have the sideline not believing and act like they can win. And I know some steps taken in this change of culture, this new attitude, but there is no way that we can accept and not be very, very mad, angry about what happened at Bobby Dodd Stadium this past Saturday. Are we going to jump and leave the team hanging and not root for Georgia Tech anymore? No, no, no. We're all in. But some things are going to have to be changed, attitude-wise and belief-wise. I can't believe, Nerny, that we kind of smelled ourselves after beating USF and all of a sudden thought we were good enough, in my opinion, to roll over and beat the Citadel Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, listen, since day one of this season, for me, this season really hasn't depended upon your win and loss record.
Right.
With that said, you can't lose this ball game that you lost on Saturday. I mean, the one game that pretty much everybody had penciled in that Georgia Tech would take care of.
I was guilty.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was guilty too. I think I said last week that, hell, I throwing Jordan Yates in there because the game would be in such control by the second half. So maybe I should take some of the blame for the loss. But listen, it's a learning experience. It was not good. The defense came out. They played strong in the first half. Citadel, they got a touchdown late in the first half. But, at halftime, you were fully expecting, regrouping in the locker room, kids getting their head on straight and coming back out in the second half and performing. But, unfortunately, it didn't happen. Discipline wasn't necessarily there on the defensive side of the ball. And then offensively, James Graham not being, able to play was in a walking boot throughout the game. So I think that hurt Tech, definitely the passing game for Georgia Tech. But offensively, it just seems like they're still trying to find their identity and exactly what they want to do with their quarterback.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest part, that the Citadel was able on their first possession to go down and put some points on the board and not being able to have the balance that everybody is waiting to see or seeing how it's going to develop. You kind of put yourself in a situation where you made it close enough, then you throw in the injury specter, you throw in the fact that you got there to the end of the game, there was a timeout on what looked like the game winner, then it's special teams in overtime that misses a field goal. So it was all over the place. The first downs you gave up, the offense not being, ready to go early in the first half, special teams, timeouts, it was a complete team and program loss, and nobody has one finger to blame anybody else.
No, and I'm glad you brought up the injuries, because I think one of the injuries, the injuries to the offensive line, you were shorthanded on the offensive line.
Yes.
And underexperienced, vastly underexperienced coming into this season with this scheme, and you take a couple injuries to the offensive line. Now, that's going to hurt you really in the football smarts of things, because Citadel, they started sending pressure. You had a lot of inexperienced offensive linemen out there, really weren't, in tune with picking up blitzes, and I think Citadel took advantage of that in the second half.
Yeah, and then Lucas Johnson, his inexperience, he's not going to sit in that pocket and, have the guts of a burglar. No, he's going to take a hit and deliver the ball on time. His reads are not there yet, and it seems like he's still a little tentative. Will he be all right? Yes, but he needs game reps, and you can't get game reps out there passing the ball when you can't block them. So what you look at, man, I just worry a little bit about preparation. I saw that those guys, and when I say preparation, leadership, it can't always come from Coach Collins. And some signs were going on throughout the week that we're not practicing well. Maybe we're not touching the line on sprints. Maybe we're taking some little things for granted just because it's the Citadel. And oh, by the way, when you find out in the second half or late first half that you were in a game, it's too late to respond now. Now it goes back to, what do you do now from here going forward? Do you go in the tank and rest and say, oh no, and give an excuse? It's easy to say that we're in a change of culture and we'll be all right down the road. But what are you doing now going forward is trying to right the wrong.
And the scheduling guides, I think, are, at least if you look at some of the positive, perfect week for a bye. sorry. You need to go through a whole lot. You need to make sure you emphasize a whole lot and making sure that you have the extra time to do it. Rest up some bodies. You're talking about the walk-ons that were in the game. This is a perfect time as you get ready to hit the road and go up to Temple for your next game. I think this is a very important week in the early part of Jeff Collins' career because he just came off of a bad loss. He had some execution he wants to clean up. How are they going to look when they hit the field the next time?
Yeah, so you've got 3 games under your belt under the new era under Jeff Collins. Bye week is here, coming off a terrible loss. You're right, perfect week to kind of reset, take in what has happened over the last 3 weeks, what the coaching staff, the things that the coaching staff have seen that they've liked, and then the things that they needed to work on. Because I got to tell you, coming up 2 weeks, Temple, that's going to be a tough matchup because we all know Jeff Collins leaving Temple did not leave the cupboard bare up there. With that said, he may also know a few of his old guys' tendencies, and that may help as well.
Guys, what have we learned 3 weeks in?
I think we're still learning it.
Okay.
And I think what most of us have seen, what I've seen, I think most people, you have some players on defense. Now, it was odd that you end up playing a team that runs the option and you got the result that you did. But that being said, I still think that the defense has a lot of goodness left in them the rest of the way. Let's see how that manifests itself. And we still need to figure out what the offensive line and the quarterback situation obviously is going to be.
For me, I still have confidence in the defense, especially that secondary. I think, you talk about leadership needing to come from somewhere. I think the guys in the secondary are the guys that need to be the leaders. Are the most talented group of a position group, I think, overall on the entire roster. So I need to see those guys continue to play well and be ready to play and get everybody else ready. Listen, it's no mystery. The front 7, the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, it's going to take a couple of years to get some new bodies in here and really up the talent there. But your secondary is good. And unfortunately, on the offensive side of the ball, I don't know if I've learned a whole lot yet.
Yes.
And I think that's, Joe, I think that's what my next thing is. I need to learn exactly what you want to do, who your quarterback is going to be. Graham, we said he's the most capable thrower, didn't play this last weekend. Does he get extended playing time against Temple after seeing Lucas Johnson and Tobias Oliver this past weekend?
I want to ask you, Joe, to that point about leadership and what have we learned, should Coach Collins now go to some of his defensive players? I know it's early. It's only 3 games. You'll be playing your 4th game. You have to let things happen organically. But you have some players on that defense. When you talk about the back end and you talk about how people are getting to the ball, is this a time early for Coach Collins to maybe go to some of those defensive players and say, hey, I'm going to need a little bit of coaching on the field and in the defensive huddles as well?
Absolutely, but how much of the defense do they know? See, there's a fine line here, home team. That's a very good question, is because normally you go to the seniors, but now you probably going to have to go to the underclassmen. Why? Because they're building your program. How much do the seniors really care? Now, I know we have a lot of seniors that's not thinking about their future. They ain't thinking about their few games left here at Georgia Tech. But there are different experiences from that loss to Citadel. You think the seniors are really loathing over that? No, they're out of here in a few weeks or maybe a month or 2. But it's the underclassmen that can learn from this. By the way, when you get favored again, when you run up into a team that you should beat, they will remember this in the back of their mind, that we can't let this happen again because we prepared this way, and they can learn from past experiences. So you don't go to them. I think Coach Collins is still a feeling out phase. Who are our leaders? And I don't care if it's the defensive side of the ball, special teams, or offense. We need to just find some leaders because Coach Collins can't be everywhere right now where he wants to be.
Tough Saturday down on the flats. It's in the books. It's now part of history. You have to accept it, learn from it, and move on. And hopefully we will certainly see some improvement as we move along. That'll do it for this week of Talkin' Tech. Home team Brandon Leak, Sean Nerny, the College Football Hall of Famer and all-time leading passer, and the Davey O'Brien Award winner. Best quarterback in 1999, Joe Hamilton. We'll see you next week when we talk tech.